Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank him for his hard work to help keep the government open. While many of us will not agree on the legislation before us today, we know it is necessary for us to proceed. So I don't rise to support or oppose the legislation, but instead to comment on the situation that we are in. Again, today we are in a situation where we're debating a short-term bill to keep the government open on a week-by-week basis. This is not any way to run a government or a business. It certainly is not a way, as the military generals have leadership have told us, to protect the national security of our country on a week-to-week basis. Democrats will work with Republicans on legislation that will create jobs, that will strengthen the middle class, and that will reduce the deficit. When all three of these scores, this Republican spending bill fails. Democrats have long fought on the subject of fiscal responsibility. Democrats have long fought for fiscal responsibility as a top priority of this Congress. We won't go into the history right now, but it's well known that President Clinton took us out of a period of deficit into his last five budgets being in surplus or in balance. President that around immediately when he became president, and now we have to dig ourselves out of the deficit that he has taken us into. Last December, Democrats passed a $41 billion cut in the president's budget. We did so with only one Republican vote. $41 billion. Democrats in the lead on fiscal soundness. On the subject of jobs, 11 weeks. We're in the 11th week of the Republican majority in the Congress, and we have not seen one bill that will create jobs. In fact, the only bill coming from the Republicans, the only legislation that has come to the floor to create jobs would be the Democratic initiatives, one, to build America bonds, to build the infrastructure of America, to keep the game in terms of innovation, build America bonds. Republicans overwhelmingly rejected that. The other bill was a bill to keep our jobs from going overseas by rewarding businesses that sent jobs overseas. Democrats said no to that idea. Republicans said no to our legislation. 0 jobs bills in 11 weeks. Quite different from the record of President Obama coming into office 2 years ago with a Democratic Congress. President Obama was a job creator from day one. 1 week and 1 day after the President's inaugural address calling for swift, bold action now to create jobs, the House of Representatives passed the recovery bill, which was then passed by the Senate and signed into law in a matter of weeks. That legislation created or saved 3.6 million jobs. This is important in terms of the deficit because it produced jobs, produced revenue into the Treasury that helped reduce the deficit. Tax cuts for the wealthy, as has been the job creator that the Republicans have put forth in the Bush administration and since, do not create jobs and increase the deficit. And so we are at a place where we have, again, 11 weeks. The Republican, not by my measure, just looked at some of the Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke said the Republican spending bill would cost not a trivial amount of jobs. Mark Zandi, the Republican economist, said the Republican spending bill would destroy 700,000 jobs. Goldman Sachs said the Republican spending bill would reduce U.S. economic growth by 1.5% to 2%. 320 economists sent a letter calling Republican cuts a threat to our economy's long-term economic competitiveness and strength and the strength of our current economic recovery.